If you are applying for jobs under pressure, this video is going to save you weeks of stress. If you feel tired, if you're broke, no money in your pocket, you feel torn down, you want to sit down and watch this video, to be frank with you. I'm going to be sharing with you real life experiences, flags we tend to miss sometimes, things that are happening to people, in the job market. Sometimes it's not really what you're doing, it's not about you, it's just, the job market is weird and you really want to know how to navigate it. So if you find yourself in such a position, sit tight and watch this video through to the end. If you don't finish it today, it's fine, but make sure you complete this video, because I'll be talking about what you can do at such odd times to navigate these murky waters. Now, what I want to share with you is the difference, or like the gap between when you apply and when you get the assault. Now, I want to ensure that as much as possible, we keep your sanity, we keep your dignity. You are a job applicant, you're not an entity and shouldn't be treated as such, when you're job hunting. Now, let me start by telling you a story, one of my personal experience. And I'm going to target the sprints to nowhere. Now, the reason I call it that is because I practically sprinted to the job interview. Location is not even very close to my house, it was quite a distance, but somehow I made it there. When you're job hunting, they tell you if you've been applying and you're not hearing from anyone, and eventually you got somebody who gives you a green light. You are very desperate and very interested. You do everything humanly possible to make sure you are there. That was what happened. Now, I got to this interview. Lo and behold, these guys just welcomed me in, and the next thing, they ushered me somewhere to sit. I was still pumped, and waiting to meet with the panel, thinking it was just that wait time. Before I knew it, these guys, one of them just came in with a laptop, and presented me with a massive process map of the university, the processes they undertake in the university. And she shows this to me. On the questions associated with the process map, I see that I needed to identify bottlenecks, I needed to identify redundancies, and then come up with a solution, all within 15 minutes. I'm also supposed to make a PowerPoint presentation on the solution I'm going to profile. Now, this came as a shock to me, because in all of the communications I've been having with them, there was no formal communication that this was part of the recruitment process. So if at that point you don't have the strength or the know-how to really do a process map, if it's not your thing, you're already failing the interview session, because there's no time to prepare. Now, I quickly walked through this process map as fast as I could, identified what I could, and then came up with solutions, and then did a PowerPoint all within the 15 minutes. Now, as soon as I was done with this, I sat for the interview. I would think that interview went well, because sometimes from the way the direction or the interview is going, you can already tell if you did well. After this interview session, I got home and I immediately saw a mail from them congratulating me for my performance on this interview, that I did so well, and they're happy to invite me to another phase. And according to them, this next phase is just a get to meet with the team, like you're meeting with the team members, people you're going to be working with, just to get to know each and every one of them, and then also an opportunity for them to meet with you as well. So it was not really like an interview, it was just like a chat, just like a chat, when you've successfully done well. I was sent a link. I was excited. In fact, it was wonderful, I would say. I attend this meeting, and to my surprise, these people who were excited all along, even from the calls and everything, from the emails they sent to me, but based on how the interview and my performance was, it didn't seem to match. I get to the interview, and what I'm meeting, is just polite coldness, and I'm wondering, am I missing something? Is there something, really going on? Am I not saying the right thing? Because really, it's just a meet and greet. It's nothing, we're not discussing technicalities, but then there was this coldness, and I couldn't tell what the problem was, but I could palpitate, their behavior, I could tell that something wasn't really adding up somewhere, and that interview came to an end. After that interview, I didn't hear from them anymore. Some days later, I get a call from them, and then the next thing they say is, yeah, sorry, I did very well in the interview. As a matter of fact, I was one of the top, candidates they had, and it was a very difficult decision for them to make at that point, and that they had to go with some other candidates. And the reason is because the particular candidate, was more of a cultural fit. At that point, I was taken aback. I was, disappointed. That's the word also, because I thought everything had gone well. It looked like everything had gone well. Now, after I just thanked her, and wished the company, the university well, rather, and of course I moved on. But then again, the lesson I learned from that experience is that sometimes you can be putting in your best, you can be doing everything, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, saying the right things and showing the right skill set, and then it still doesn't work out, as it should or as you expected. I mean, these things happen to people. It's not just happening to you, and you shouldn't personalize it. It's difficult here, particularly at times where you're quite desperate, or under some form of pressure to get a job, and all of that. It doesn't feel really good, But the truth of the matter is that sometimes it's not really about you, There are a lot of things in between that they may not be able to communicate with you. What they said was cultural fit, and I absolutely understand, because it is what it is. Yeah, cultural fit. Story number 2. This one is an IT company, and they specialize in building softwares for companies and all of that. And I applied. I was sent, like a task to do, and on this task I was supposed to identify problems, come up with solutions. It was quite massive, and then of course create PowerPoint slides which I'll be presenting, during the interview. And I did this, spent time, preparing for the days, trying to, put these things together. And then I turned it in. According to the mail, you're supposed to turn it in, and then another interview date, will be, fixed to speak with you, based on your performance. It was supposed to be like a screening phase, beyond your CV applications. Now, if the presentations you're turning in, is not meeting up to standard, you won't be invited. Now, they sent me a mail that the presentation was wonderful and that they invited me to the next stage. I showed up on this said day. I come in by clicking the meeting link, and you won't believe it that I was just there. As a matter of fact, I started wondering, am I talking to myself? Because the person, who was supposed to be interviewing me didn't turn on his camera. As a matter of fact, he didn't turn on his camera all through that interview, and didn't even find the courtesy to say he wasn't going to turn up his camera, for whatever reason he had, but this guy didn't even talk about it. That was quite weird. It felt like I was, talking to myself all through that interview session. The attitude he had was quite lax, quite laid back, like if somebody actually cajoled him into, coming for this interview session. Now, the presentation I was supposed to make, because you're supposed to also do the presentation and all of that. He didn't ask me for the presentation. We didn't even talk about that. This guy just came up and he wasn't even interested in getting to know me. He didn't ask anything about my job history or where I've worked or to even know what I do. All he said was, have you written user stories before? And I said, yes. Can you write user stories? Start writing user stories. And he gave me a scenario for, how you can build a software, and then I should write these user stories for the particular software. That was it. And he wanted me to be typing it while he was there. I finished, and I will tell you that that interview was an apology. Now we barely managed, to go through that interview because there were no further questions, nothing. It was just, silence. Okay, convince me to build a particular feature in the software. Convince me to do this. It was quite laid back, and at the end of the day, at some point I felt like thanking him for the time and just asking politely if I could leave the interview because I was done. But somehow I managed to get through with that interview. So sometimes things can really get that way, like you just come on and you see all kinds of behavior. It's not really about you. You didn't do something wrong. It's not about you. I mean, that's just how the person chose to show up that particular day. And I waited for days. I didn't get any feedback from them, nothing from the HR, no communication. And eventually I thought, why don't I just send a mail to these guys? HR responded, and what she told me was that she's sorry, about the way the whole interview went and the silence that, so far. That what actually happened was that they had an internal candidate, and they were going to go for particular candidates, so it made it quite clear to me, why the guy was behaving in that manner in the first place, because obviously it was just the company putting out an ad, to fill up that quota that they've already done, and not like they were going to recruit you anyway. They already had someone they wanted for that role. As a matter of fact, that person, would probably just be chilling somewhere, and all of that. It's not really like I said, what you're saying or what you're not saying. It could be that they already have somebody internally, suitable for that particular role. But then again, they need to put out these ads, because if they don't do it, it becomes an issue for them, and they put it out. They just try to welcome other people in, talk and all that, but not like they're gonna take you, so when that happens, and they come up with the "I'm so sorry" or "we are so sorry," sometimes it's not really that you didn't perform well, it's not that you didn't speak well, it just happens that it is circumstantial. At such times they already have someone and don't have capacity to take you in. Now my third story, and I'm going to give this one a name as well. I'll call this one the revolving door. Yes. And I'm going to tell you why I call it that. So I applied for this role. I get called for the interview. HR fantastic, and we're able to fix a date for the interview. And only for me to get to this interview, I meet a lady, who happens to be the hiring manager for that particular position. And we started out well. And we got talking, it seemed to be going all right. And somehow I just from nowhere decided to ask, why is this position open? And I think that was where everything just went from 100 to 0. Oh my goodness. Now, as soon as I asked that question, the lady, started talking. And the recruiter said she used to have someone on that particular position, but now the person has gone, and the person went to another team, and she didn't sound really excited about it. It didn't sound like it was a good working relationship from what I could tell. And how the lady, is just sitting a table away from, where she sits or where she used to sit, and they get to see every day. And I'm like, oh, okay, it happens. That was what I thought. Like, okay, she probably feels they need to do try her hands on something else. Yeah, that can happen, in the course of one's career, and I felt that was fine. We ended the interview, and the HR sent a regret mail. truth of the matter, that interview went well. I felt like I was really doing it in that interview session. I felt good after that interview. I thought I had smashed it. I couldn't understand it. It was just the regular generic "we are sorry," kind of email, rejection mail, and I was going to accept it, but I just thought about it like I could ask for feedback. If there's something I'm doing wrongly, I could correct it, for subsequent ones. And I thought to ask, and it was this time it was a phone call, and the HR was very responsive, and I asked her, "I'm sorry, but can you share with me the feedback from the hiring manager, so that I'm better prepared for subsequent roles?" And then she goes, "I wish I could tell you something honestly. It's really not about you. The truth of the matter is that I've been trying to fill up this position for a very long time now. Tired myself, like we've not been able to close up this particular position, and that's because she keeps rejecting everyone who comes. So it's not really about you," because she couldn't really tell me anything concrete when I asked her, because I made sure I asked her why she wasn't having you, and of course, as usual, she didn't really seem to have anything to hold against you, but she wasn't just, forthcoming. She just didn't have any reason, and yeah, so if she doesn't have any particular reason, I decide to send a rejection email, and hope that you get the best in your career. At that point, I then remembered my conversation with the hiring manager. I remember her telling me how she has been using contract business analyst for this particular role, and she seemed very excited about using contracts BAs, particularly because they just come and go, strictly business. They don't, after the 6 months, or the 9 months, everybody goes their way, and then she's back again to get someone else. Now, the issue with the contract role is that they are definitely paying higher, and the HR would have loved it if they had someone, permanently on that role. But apparently, that's the kind of working relationship she prefers. She just wants you to come 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, and you are gone, and she doesn't get to see your face anymore. Not because you did anything, but yeah, she doesn't want you anymore, and she's looking for the next person. It's her style. So at such times, what do? You have to move on and start looking elsewhere. So when you find yourself applying for jobs, getting a lot of rejection mail, majority of the times is not necessarily what you're not doing correctly. They just have their reasons. People have their styles, their working styles. Some of the questions we should let's not shy away from asking these questions. Majority of the time we feel like because we are job hunting, we're at a position that is quite disadvantaged, and then you let someone strip you of your dignity. No, you need to keep it intact. You need to keep it intact. You're job hunting, you're not losing your sanity, and you go in with pride, you walk tall and you live tall. You keep it that way. Let it stay that way. The team that would accept you is out there waiting for you if you don't give up. Now, one of the questions I want you to talk about, don't shy away from this, is to ask them, is the role approved? Is it budgeted for? So if you ask them, they're going to tell you the truth. And even if they shy away, somehow you still get some information that will be useful to you, that you can use to manage your own expectations. It's important. That way you don't get broken after it. If you see the rejection emails flying in, you already know, I could already tell, and you keep moving. It's fine. No hard feelings. You move on. And the second question I would also want us to ask when we find ourselves in an interview is there an internal candidate undergoing this same process? Ask them if there's an internal candidate. They're going to tell you. So That way, you know, okay, chances are I can get it, or the internal candidate can also get it, you know. So you keep your mind open. You are not going to feel disappointed if you think you've put in your best and still don't get that particular job. Now, another thing you want to ask is, what tools or skill sets are not negotiable on this role? Now, it's important you ask these questions, because if it's a team, take for instance the kind of job I do, if it's a team that is big on process maps and you don't know how to design a process map, you want to already know from the start. If it's a team that, you know, doesn't joke with test cases, the BAs in the team write test cases, you want to know from the start. That way you're able to judge yourself, even, you know, if you don't meet the expectation, and you're able to better manage yourself if you get a rejection. No, it's not a do or die affair, really. And then you go and upskill, go and learn those things, you know, that you think you may be lacking, you know, such that when you have another opportunity, you are able to showcase these skill sets. Rejection is not verdict. Sometimes the job never existed. It didn't. You know, and if you understand it that way, you'll have peace within you. Your job as a job applicant is to collect data as well. You're also interviewing them. You know, you're not at the receiving end, you're also interviewing them to know if they're also a fit for you, if you want to be with them as well. You know, it should be a two-way thing. It's not one way, you know, then you are that, you know, messy. No, don't have that attitude. You know, protect your energy, save it for, you know, a team that is willing, you know, or a room that is willing to absorb, you know, the kind of energy you're coming with. Winning. Yeah. Now, just before I wrap up this video, you can look at, you know, general job boards when you're applying for roles, like Total Jobs, Monster CV, LinkedIn, although that can feel like a far cry, but then again, I'll mention it because it's also a popular one. You can also look at Guardian Jobs. You can also look at Reed. Those are good places to apply, you know. And another place I want to talk about are the public sectors. You can look at NHS jobs, you know, that is track, and they use track for that. You can apply on track. You can look at civil service jobs. You can also look at local government jobs. One last one I want to mention for those of you in tech, you can look at CW jobs. You can also look at JobServe. Now, these are good places to apply. I've used some of them, and you know, you definitely, if your CV is really good, you're going to get called. You're going to get, you know, a chance to be interviewed. You know, of course, bearing in mind that a lot of people are also applying like you, but then again, somehow, you know, I get interviews, you know, coming in from these places I've mentioned. If you think this video has helped you, you know, kindly share with your friends, you know, people who you think may need this information. And also, don't forget to, besides sharing this video to them, also give them a pat on the back. Ask them how they are doing, encourage them. Sometimes it can be quite overwhelming and people can feel like they're in their bubble. You know, ask them genuinely. Yeah, people know when you are genuine about them, you know, not just asking, they know. You know, so ask them how they're doing. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. If you haven't subscribed, do well to subscribe. Thank you. Bye.